see right here on screen is the author of The Beginning After the End officially responding on Reddit about the anime adaptation of The Beginning After the End. And I think, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably have kind of seen the news here and there, and especially if you follow my channel, you definitely have seen it. But The Beginning After the End is not doing so hot. It's not really been a good anime adaptation. Honestly, it is a downgrade in every single way, and legitimately, the only thing I could really say is just go read the original source. Either go read the novel, or go read, like, the webcomic, for instance. That's what I recommend, because it is good. It is a very good series, but the anime is just doing such a massive disservice to it that it's legitimately harming the entire product. So after 3 weeks of just, let's be honest, straight up critique and just hatred towards the series, finally, the author has responded, and this is a full-long post that they have created, and I'm going to read this entire thing off, and so let's get right into it. So, with the anime adaptation of The Beginning After the End having reached its 3rd week and SakuraCon approaching, I felt it necessary for me to speak up in hopes to quell any misunderstandings making their rounds. I want to start off by thanking all of you. Things have gotten loud, for a lack of a better word, and I sincerely was touched by the heartfelt messages I've received. It means a lot to me that throughout the near decade of writing, The Beginning After the End, the story has amassed such a passionate fan base. Coming from a time where I was sitting in the corner of a cafe, writing the novel by myself for myself, it's obvious that's just how large The Beginning After the End has gotten. I'm no longer just responsible for myself, but for my team members, the partners associated with my work, as well as my readers. And with each iteration of The Beginning After the End, where more and more people are involved, comes its own unique set of challenges and intricacies. The anime adaptation has been a huge learning experience, collaborating in an industry with so many different people across TAPAS, Studio ACAT, and Crunchyroll, who all bring their own unique vision of what The Beginning After the End anime could be. I'll talk more about that in a second. That's interesting how that was worded. But at the end of the day, there will always be creative differences in the room. But I really do believe that everyone is coming at it with their best effort and intentions. This is an interesting statement as well. Once again, I'll get more into that in a bit. I learned in the anime industry it is very rare for the creators to have a say in deciding the ins and outs when it comes to the inception of an anime. This was a huge growing point for me, since I was used to having control over everything regarding The Beginning After the End. After all, for the novel, I am the one writing it. For the comic, I oversee every single round. When The Beginning After the End was optioned for an anime, I realized there were millions of moving parts before production could even begin. Oftentimes, the best products are an amalgamation of passion, hard work, and luck from a strong and dedicated team. But as with anything you love, whether it's your pet, your story, or even your child, when faced with challenges, you don't wish for it to be gone and have a do-over. You support it in through difficult times and push it up so that it can become something that you can cherish because of all the trials and tribulations you've overcome together. When we first adapted The Beginning After the End into a webcomic, it was just me and Fuyuki, 23, along with our editors at the time. Because of the limited resources, we were only able to put out episodes that were roughly 30 to 50 panels long, aka episodes is chapters. Let's just speak for chapters, for those that are confused on that. Which was considered well before the industry standard. Complaints came about this, but in the end, the support that it ultimately garnered allowed our team to grow and to be able to improve despite the obstacles that came our way. As the author of The Beginning After the End, one who has spent 10 years writing almost 2 million words of this story, I hope you'll believe me when I say that I want nothing but the best for this story. Whatever feelings you have for the anime, I am thankful for all the people behind the scenes who have given me this opportunity, and I am thankful for all of you for helping make this happen in the first place. You've stuck through The Beginning After the End at its highs and lows, and so I ask for your support now. Please continue being the rock that gave The Beginning After the End the time and chance to be where it is today. I'm not asking you to like something you don't, but please be respectful and set an example in the vast ocean that is the internet. Many creators think their fan base as think of their fan base as a double-edged sword. But as the one who is fortunate to be wielding this sword, I know that it all starts with acknowledging and respecting both blades. Every decision I make regarding the beginning after the end, I make with the intention of respecting myself and all the time and tears I spent writing it, respecting those supporting me in an unfamiliar industry, and respecting you all in the hopes that whatever is made could be something you like. I'm only human, and not every one of my decisions may play out perfectly, but believe me when I say that I respect you and my fans for your dedication and support for the beginning after the end. I'm still very much going to SoccerCon, and I can't wait to meet you all those who make it, so I could share a small special announcement with you all. There's a lot to really unpackage with this, so let's start from the very top. Let's get into this section here, and then we'll work our way down and kind of ripping this apart and what TurtleMe is saying about his series. So I want to get into this paragraph first, but before I get ahead of myself, something does need to be stated. This entire statement from TurtleMe, aka the offer of beginning after the end, this is more or less damage control. Now, I'm not saying that the intentions weren't genuine. For instance, I'm not saying that the author making this doesn't have genuine emotions and everything that's written here isn't coming from the heart. I'm not saying that. But this post is 100%, and let's just be blunt, damage control in some degree. Because, let's be fair here, the anime is off to a very bad start. I mean, one look at the preview for the upcoming episode, it's not good. It's just like we see CGI, and honestly, this is probably the most movement we have seen in the beginning after the end's anime, and someone at the studio, ACAT, was able to figure out particle effects in their editor. But what I'm trying to say is that, it's very clear this post, the intention of it is to damage control, but also to get the author's genuine thoughts out there on how they feel about the product itself. And in this case, what the author really tries to outline is saying that you don't have to like the anime. That's the first thing that comes to mind. And then also, the author basically says that, yes, you know, maybe it's not what you want, but at the end of the day, he doesn't believe people are maliciously trying to make it bad. That is definitely what this, you know, little statement basically from the author kind of, you know, outlines. But the point is that the author admits that they were naive, in corpo speak, so to speak, because straight up, the author can't say they're very upset with the anime. I think that is something people need to come to terms with, that the author cannot straight up say, I hate the show. I hate the anime. They can't do that. They can't smear Crunchyroll. They can't smear TAPAS. They cannot smear Studio ACAT. They are locked in. They are contractually obligated to basically say nothing but positivity about it. And even if they weren't, if they did decide to speak up and say anything negative, it legitimately could look bad on them and cause them to potentially lose their series or just other problems down the line, what I'm trying to say. So it's very obvious why the author cannot directly just make statements and say, I hate this anime, it's awful. It's just, you don't see that often. It makes complete sense. I don't blame the author for this statement. But I will say that this statement is still very risky. It's a very risky statement to make because obviously, despite it clearly being a damage control statement, there is hints here within the statement that showcases some level of dissatisfaction. And so let's get into this paragraph I have highlighted first. So basically, he comes to terms in saying that with each iteration of the beginning after the end, more and more people get involved, aka from his novel to eventually his webcomic, and then now to the anime, more and more people get on the staff. There's a lot of chefs or cooks in the kitchen, and because of that, you have, for instance, like TAPAS, Studio ACAT, and Crunchyroll get into the picture, and things have to change, because they all have their own vision on what the series' direction should be, and because of that, the author doesn't have as much pull or weight as they once had when they were just by themselves writing their novel. And so you can see that there's a lot of pulls and tug-of-war back and forth between how the anime or how the series should be adapted. And this is clearly what the author is trying to outline here, is the learning capacity of this and how difficult it is to actually make an anime. Next thing is he had to learn a lot about the anime industry. He talks about the ins and outs and about the inception of the anime and the growing point for me, or him in general, for how he used to have control over everything, but now he basically doesn't. And I think this is a big outline here. It showcases a little bit of negativity with the statement. Now, once again, he didn't outright say that this is negative, but this is my interpretation of it, okay? So take that as you will, grain of salt, whatever. But the way this is worded, it's worded in a way to where he's like, he was naive, he didn't understand how the anime industry fully worked, and like, his perception of it is if you got a big studio, which this comes directly from his interview, by the way, I covered last week, but in the interview, he had a big list of like studios to choose. For instance, like ACAT was a part of it, and he chose ACAT not because of very well-known anime they did, but because they were a smaller studio with not a lot of projects, and he felt that they would put all the priority in to the beginning after the end. And a big studio, for instance, let's just throw one out there, like let's say Madhouse or Mappa or Ufotable, you know, if you would have given his project to them, it might not have been a top priority and it might have flopped. They might have skipped content, they might have compressed the content in just a 12-episode series. You get the point. So his concern was the adaptation. He wanted the adaptation to be following the series and not have any cut content, so to speak, which is very fair from a perspective. And so the overall choice of Studio ACAT was good intentions. The offer had good intentions. It wanted to choose something that would actually probably adapt his series right. Obviously, we know for a fact there was probably more at play behind the scenes when it came to Crunchyroll's decision, TAPAS' decision, and probably more of saving money and cut costs, so to speak, for why he got that studio. But the point is that the offer did pick a studio, and clearly that turned out to be very naive. He didn't obviously know a lot about the anime industry, and which has led to some of the issues that we currently have. But once again, what this definitely shows is that the offer was having to deal with a growing point that he no longer had control over everything. He couldn't control his series or direction of the anime like he probably wanted. He had to learn to just let it go. He no longer was the master string puller anymore. It was left up into the hands of the director or people that were working on the show. It was no longer in his jurisdiction, which basically he basically admits that his decisions or the decisions of how the anime isn't necessarily his fault. And this right here gets into what I talked about. It's like, it's damage control, but he's also distancing himself away from the product, saying, I didn't fully approve of all this. That's kind of what is implied here. Now, continuing further on, he talks about how, like, just because it's bad doesn't mean you should throw it away. Just because, like, maybe the pet's not acting right or whatever, doesn't mean you could just do a do-over and start over. It doesn't work like that. You gotta work with what you got. If you're dealt a bad hand, that's just a load of crap. You got a load of crap, and you gotta cultivate that into something. Turn it into a plant, so to speak. You know, it's fertilizer. So, in this case, what's going on here is the offer saying that just because the product is potentially bad and not everybody's going to like it or nobody's going to like it, he's going to turn it into any way he can into a positive. And in this case, the way you could spin it is obviously be a very good PR speaker, aka what the offer is doing here, but also get more people involved with the webcomic and the novel. For instance, if, the anime is so bad but people are interested in the story, they might dive into the original sources. And that's kind of what's being implied here. Just because maybe they don't like the anime product, they might like the webcomic, they might like the anime, which I have or not, they might like the webcomic, they might like the novel. I don't know why I said anime, but basically, it's what I've been advocating for a while, that, the anime is really bad, just go read the original source, and that's kind of more or less what I feel the offer is saying in this given moment. Now, this paragraph right here is very important. He basically talks about how long he's been writing, and he's spent a lot of time and effort, hundreds upon hundreds of hours writing the beginning after the end, and he basically says from the bottom of his heart that he truly does want to give the series the best. He wants to give the best story possible, and he, you know, he's like, whatever you feel about the anime, he's like, just please be respectful. And I think this is a very big point. The offer obviously is trying to say, look, if you hate the anime, that's completely fine. Just don't go harassing animators. Don't go harassing directors. Don't go harassing, you know, Studio ACAT or anything. Don't go harassing people. But if you dislike it and you want to critique it, that's completely A-okay. That's basically what the offer says here. Just be very respectful, which is fair. Very fair statement. I think that is completely fine. Because, as I've already said, I don't think the animators working on the beginning after the end more or less is coming from a place of hatred or anger towards the series. It's just most likely bad production or just not really good management, so to speak, within the studio, which is probably causing a lot of things. And that's not including probably TAPAS and Crunchyroll issues alongside of that with the production. So there's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts within the anime and what probably caused it to be like it is. But, you know, it's not fully the animator's faults or anything like that, and that's basically what the offer's saying. Just don't go harassing people. But yeah, overall, I will say that this is a very interesting statement by the author, finally giving some context of how they feel. There is definitely some things here that implies the author isn't satisfied or happy with it, but more or less, they have to silence themselves or they risk other ramifications. This was probably a very risky post for them to make, I'm going to be honest with you. I wonder if this was approved by Crunchyroll or TAPAS or anything. That I am very curious about, but regardless, I like this post. I think that this is nice to address the community. It's very clear that the author is aware of the criticism, but they basically say, yes, they were naive, but they still love their series and they want it to be successful. I think that's fair. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I love you guys. You have a fantastic day or night wherever you live. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.